A five-judge bench of the Apex Court has concluded hearings and reserved judgment in the electoral bonds case. The Supreme Court completed hearings on the fate of future of political funding in just 3 days. So let's take a look at the key arguments and Supreme Court's observations. The petitioners argued that current scheme was promoting corruption by allowing for kickbacks to be routed through these opaque bonds. The petitioners argued that there is one party that is pocketing the bulk of the donations. They cited 5-year data from FY18 to FY22. From a total of 9,200 crores of electoral bonds issued, BJP garnered a lion's share with nearly 5,300 crores. Congress was a distant second at around 950 crore rupees. Petitioners also argue that government of the day can get access to donor details through SBI or through law enforcement agencies. This, as per the petitioners, would give the ruling party an undue advantage. Petitioners also submitted that even foreign companies could fund Indian parties by deploying shell companies in India for buying bonds. Petitioners also raised the question, can corporate donors' demand for confidentiality trump the voters' fundamental right to know about political funding? Meanwhile, the centre mounted a stiff defence. The Solicitor General Tushar Mehta submitted that ruling party has always garnered the bulk of donations by citing the donations between 2004 and 2014. Centre also cited the SBI chairman to assure that donor details are not shared with the centre. Further, the centre submitted that it is not uncommon for corporates to donate to parties that they support. In fact, they support parties that ensure stability and growth, an argument coming in from the Solicitor General. He further argued that it was in fact the donors who had sought for confidentiality to avoid political retribution. He further submitted that without electoral bonds, we risk going back to the old regime of cash donations. The Attorney General also argued that we can't have an overbroad right to know and that there must be reasonable restrictions. The Supreme Court has reserved its judgment post these arguments. The Supreme Court has also asked the Election Commission to supply details of donations received by parties. It has not asked for donor details at this point. The Supreme Court has made some key observations as well. Number one, Supreme Court has questioned the selective confidentiality of electoral bonds, remarking that centre would enjoy some access to information via the SBI or law enforcement agencies. The Supreme Court also said that there was nothing preventing the government from coming out with a better scheme. The Supreme Court remarked how previous regime had safeguards like caps on political funding and requirements for disclosures. The Supreme Court also asked the centre, what about the voters' right to know? Supreme Court finally warned that bonds should not end up legitimizing kickbacks and noted that while the motive may be laudable, there seems to be an information hole. So all eyes now on the Supreme Court to provide a decision on the way forward. What increases the stakes even further is that crucial assembly elections and the grand finale Lok Sabha elections are just around the corner.